Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Audit Committee it is now 4:02 on Wednesday, the 23rd of September 2020. My name is Councillor Kevin Lloydell and I am the chair of this committee. In accordance with the regulations made under Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this remote meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The audio-visual recording will be made available on the council website and YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. All meeting participants are reminded to speak slowly and clearly in the direction of their device microphone at all times. A reminder that mobile phones and other electronic devices should be turned off and put on silent mode, and those participating in the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. For the purpose of recording of attendance, I can confirm that the following councillors are present and participating in this remote meeting. Councillor Pretty Joshi, Councillor Jeffrey Coifman, myself, Kevin Lloydell, Councillor David Lloydell and Councillor Ian Ridley. We also have following officers in attendance, and they are Samuel Ball, trainee solicitor who is acting as a Democratic Services Officer, Stephen Hines, Deputy Chief Executive, and Judith Sweeney, the Democratic and Electoral Services Officer. Finally, we've also the following auditors in attendance, and they are Ruby Dio, Internal Audit Manager for CW Audit, Mark Watkins, Head of Internal Audit for CW Audit. For the purposes of the regulations, I can confirm that before the remote meeting went live, all participants confirmed that they can see or hear all of the participants. I'm assuming that everybody can. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the council adopted remote meeting procedure rules, and summary of each is attached in tonight's agendas for reference. I also politely remind all participants that they must not act in a disorderly or disruptive manner or otherwise interfere with the committee's proper conduct or business. Thank you. Put that to one side and go to the agenda. Apologies for absence, please. Item 1.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Naveed Alam, Chair.
Item 2, apologies, appointment of substitutes. No substitutes at all. Go on to item 3, which is the declaration of any interest. Anybody got a declaration of any interest in participating in this on the agenda? No? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. To read and confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting in accordance with Rule 19 of Part 4 of the Constitution. Are there any questions on the minutes of the previous meeting? Can't see any hands up at the moment.
You can approve the minutes by general affirmation, Chair, if you wish.
Okay. I'll approve the meeting. Minutes of the last meeting by what was the terminology used, Sammy?
General affirmation. No one's dissenting.
Nobody's dissenting. Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Nobody's dissenting. Thank you. We can move on. Declaration of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting we've just done. Action list rising from the previous minutes.
There was no action list, Chair, rising from the previous. It's a non-item.
Okay. No petitions or deputations.
Received.
Hang on. All right. It's me turning too many pages at once. My apologies. Now we're going to item 7, which is the annual audit report and opinions of 2019-20 at pages 8 and 22. Who's taking this, please? In the recommendations, it's council. It's to note the report on one and note the effectiveness on the other. Okay. And the effective internal audit to be endorsed. The difference being, Samuel, can you advise me on the two? One's been noted, the other one's to be endorsed.
Chair, it's for all intents and purposes, it's an information report, so you can members can approve the report by affirmation at the end.
On both?
Yeah.
Yeah, both recommend two. Thank you very much.
I can talk you through the first of those reports, Chair, if that's okay.
Okay, Mark, yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I thought perhaps just to start off with, myself and my colleague Ruby are new to this audit committee. I think the last time it actually met prior to lockdown, I think my colleague Anand Persaud attended on behalf of CW Audit. So just to introduce ourselves, really, I'm the acting as your head of audit, internal audit, and Ruby is your new internal audit manager. We've just done a bit of a swap round. Anand had been your audit manager for a number of years at Obion Wigston, and the public sector internal audit standards recommend that there is a certain amount of rotation of sort of key internal audit posts. So Ruby's already audit manager at one of our other local government clients. So she got the sort of experience that we were looking for. So it was a sort of a straight swap, really. So we both come this evening just so that the committee members can put a face to the name. And then for subsequent audit committees, it'll either be both of us or maybe just the one of us attending. It just depends how much is on the agenda and etc. But okay, so anyway, you've seen us both now. Hopefully you'll know who we are. Okay, so on to the first item that's internal audit related this evening, the annual report for the 1920 year. The purpose of this report, really, it's twofold. It's to provide a summary of our activity during the year against the 1920 audit plan. And secondly, it's to provide a head of audit opinion that is based on sort of the entire remit of all the work that we've done during the year. And it's required really by the public sector internal audit standards that we do have to provide you with an annual opinion that's based on the work that we've done during the year. That work is in turn based on sort of a risk assessment process, a planning process that identifies the key areas that we'll be looking at. That tends to be a mix of sort of your key fundamental financial income systems and other areas that are generally things that are sort of being highlighted coming up on your risk register. So we make sure that the audit plan is properly focused in order to provide that opinion. If it's unfortunate, but I don't think I'm able to present any report at the moment without mentioning COVID. So obviously, when the lockdown hit back in March, that is a very busy period for us. There were a number of audits that we were progressing at that point. It became very difficult to complete tasks simply because mainly there was so much work involved for council officers responding to the crisis. So we did change our approach a little bit towards the end of the year. We completed most of our work, but if you look at page 16 of your papers, we have summarised what the impact of COVID-19 was. So there were a couple of areas of audit that were ongoing at the time that we just weren't able to finish in a timely fashion, and instead we provided some additional support to Steve and his team, particularly around trying to get to grips with the business grant payments that were kicking off sort of at that time. Despite that, I am confident that we finished enough work to provide head of audit opinion for the year. The two audits where we'd started the work and we drew some conclusions, but I didn't feel it was appropriate to provide individual opinions for those assignments, so that we were doing some work in the housing services area and looking at the capital accounting process as well. So we did report on both of those, but they were kind of advisory reports in the end, because we weren't able to complete the amount of testing that we required in order for us to provide an opinion on those two assignments. So despite that, we did deliver 15 different assignments during the year that had the individual assignment opinions attached to them. 2 of those we gave full assurance to. We gave 9 significant assurance opinions, 3 moderates, 1 limited, and there were no opinions of no assurance. That's summarised on page 20 of your documents. So that amount of work that we did enabled me to provide my overall opinion for the year. We have a choice. We can range from full, significant, moderate, limited or no assurance, and we provided a significant assurance opinion across all of our work, that generally speaking, the council has robust systems of control in place. We do tend to find some areas of non-compliance, except where we provide full assurance opinions, but none of those areas of non-compliance or lack of control were sufficient for us to sort of flag those as things that should be identified as significant control issues in your annual governance statement. So I think that's sort of a comforting point for the audit committee to take away from this. Significant assurance for an annual opinion is probably, well, definitely actually as good as it gets. In my 30 odd years of experience in public sector internal audit, I've never provided a full assurance opinion, annual opinion. I have provided some moderates and even limiteds in the past. So significant assurance, I think, gives you the comfort as committee members that the systems and control and the processes that the council is operating are pretty robust. I have identified some areas which are summaries really of things that will have been in your progress reports during the year anyway. So where we've given less than significant assurance, I have on pages 17 and 18 of the document you've got before you, just summarise the issues that have led us to give less than significant assurance. If we just look at those in a little more detail, I do find, as your head of audit, that council officers are very proactive when it comes to acting on any areas where we've sort of not given significant assurance. So for nearly all of these bullet points that I've identified here, this is at a point in time when we reported on these areas. Since then, there's been quite a lot of progress. So if we take risk management for the first one, key area there was that we need to make sure there's a proper documented strategy in place, a policy document, which wasn't previously there. A lot of work has now gone into doing that. We've been helping and facilitating that, and I'll come on to that in a bit more in the progress report that follows this. The debtors one, there still is a need to, based on the latest recommendation tracker, there are a couple of areas on there that Comey and his team still need to deal with, and that's been acknowledged. And I think that's probably COVID related as to why there's still some work to be done just to look at and improve the debt recovery routines for the council. There's been quite a lot of work on IT application security, which, if we were looking at that now, I'd be giving significant assurance. As I say, at a point in time when this work was done, we only provided limited assurance, but the actions that have been taken have improved the access controls around the 3 systems that we looked at there. Similarly, on safeguarding that action, to put a proper management trail in process to demonstrate that we're obtaining DBS checks where there's a need to do so. That's now been implemented. On the housing side, this is the one of the audits that we weren't able to fully complete. We have provided a number of recommendations on actions that are needed, all of which are actually part of an overarching comprehensive action plan that the council already has in place to address a number of areas to improve processes in housing, particularly around maintenance, voids, control of those kind of things. So that is, I understand, a large piece of work that's still ongoing, and we will look at that again. It makes more sense to do that later on this financial year to give officers an opportunity to deliver that action plan first. Just to finish off, we do provide on page 21 just a very brief summary of the total number of recommendations we made in the year, to give you a flavour of how many of those recommendations were high, which would be level 2. 1 would be critical. Level priority 2 are high priority. Medium priority is level 3, and level 4 is housekeeping issues. And then we just give you a snapshot of the position on the recommendation tracking system at the year end, which again, we update in progress reports. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that when it comes to looking at the next item on the agenda, because that's more up-to-date information on where we are on the tracking system.
Okay.
Sorry for droning on.
No, that's fine.
A little bit longer than I'd intended. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Could I suggest, if you don't mind, is that if we go through page by page, and if there's any questions on any of those items on that page, please, what's happening now? Please let me know.
Ooh.
Is that okay with everybody? And I think there's some good stuff here, some good stuff that we can congratulate officers on. But equally, there's some clarification questions I need to ask as well for clarification. So if we can start on page 9, which is, again, Mark, you've already alluded to 1.4, the internal audit statement, which is significant assurances. I think that's it should give members some confidence that we're moving in the right direction. So I think, as a matter of record, I think that's a good comment, and thank you for that. Page 10 is just the introduction, and page 11 is just the agenda. Page 12 just identifies the introduction. Page 13, please stop me if people, if they can go too quick, or if you've got a question, please shout out, although I keep pressing my... There's no blue light, no hands up at the moment. If there's any questions on 13, again, the section 3 or the paragraph, the paragraph below it, no significant issues or concerns regarding the internal audit service have been raised to date. I think, again, that's a good comment, good statement to clarify where we are at the moment. Page 13, we've gone to 14. Is there any questions on page 14? No hands up at the moment. Okay, page 15. No. Page 15, I've got one with regards to my overall opinion. Again, it says significant assurances, which is good. But then the last paragraph towards the end talks about system provide a balanced audit opinion. The caveat, there may be some weaknesses. I think the weaknesses are identified throughout the document, I understand, Mark, aren't they?
Yes, so that's really referring to the fact that you know we weren't able to provide opinions on a couple of areas that we were looking at, even though we'd done a reasonable amount of work before lockdown hit and all hell broke loose. But I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we hadn't finished it sufficiently to provide individual assignment opinions in those areas. I would focus mainly on the housing audit, actually, because that's the area where Steve may want to add something on this, but that's the area where the council had already identified that it needed to make some improvements. So
we'll come to that. We'll come to that further down.
Okay. So yeah, it's
sorry. If we just carry on through the pages, so it gives members an opportunity to see if there's any questions that may want to ask. 15, page 16. Any questions on page 16? I can't see any hands up at the moment. Again, I'm looking at the COVID thing. I think people have done exceptionally well dealing with this particular problem. So it's full congratulations to you all on that. The last sentence where it talks about things were suspended, we're able to provide a management with independent assessments on areas that require further improvement. The areas of improvements, again, run through the documents, Mark, don't they? Where you're showing what area of improvements can be. Yeah,
they do. Most of those are for things that we did do an official report on. And I have also included areas for improvement on housing, which we did some work on, but we didn't produce a full audit report at the end of it for the reasons already stated.
Okay. Page 17. Any comments? No hands up again. Could I look at the risk management again? There is some more information about risk management, but again, it talks about the first paragraph. This action is currently underway. We talk about the production of formal risk management strategy. How far have you got? Is that an update that's further on?
It is included in the progress report, so I can either talk about it now and then not then, or whatever.
We'll leave it till then, Mark.
Okay.
As long as we know it's in there. I know it's in there, so thank you very much for that. Item page 17. Any comments? Page 18. You've already mentioned housing.
Yes.
Sorry. Councillor David Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies. It's on the IT application systems in terms of identified a number of weaknesses and presented risks and unauthorised access, unauthorised changes to the system configuration and data. That, to me, is quite worrying in terms of how have we got unauthorised access and what has been changed and what's the impact of that to us as a council, because obviously the IT applications that you're looking at there are human resources, personal data, The academy revenue and benefits, again, personal data, and orchard housing system, again, personal data. What have we done to action those and ensure that data has not been lost or harvested?
What page are you on, David?
Sorry, page 17.
Page 7, thank you.
Do you want me
Anyone
to?
wants to reply to that?
I can start. I don't know whether Steve may have some further information on this, but based on the results of the audit recommendation tracking system, which I monitor closely, there have been a reduction in the number of accounts that have a high level of access. There were some accounts that had remained on the system where staff had subsequently left. Those have been removed. My understanding is that our IT auditor suggested also that some controls around strengthening the length of passwords, that has also being undertaken. So I'm confident that the weaknesses that our IT auditor found when he undertook this audit have been plugged. As to we have no evidence to suspect that there's been actually any unauthorized data accessed as part of the audit, but we are confident that weaknesses which may have increased the risk of that occurring have actually now been dealt with. So overall, I'm fairly comfortable that you haven't been exposed, that there isn't any evidence at this point that there's been any sort of significant exposure to risk. So I think the audit identified potential risks rather than risks that had actually crystallised into a problem.
Okay, Councillor David Lloyd, is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Your questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So page 70, that's where the question that Councillor David Lloyd asked on. Page 18, any questions on that? Housing we're going to talk about later anyway. I've got a question on that. Anybody else on 18? We'll go on to 19. See no hands up this far.
Chair, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
I'm having difficulty finding my hand to put up at the moment. But
okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course you can.
You'll no doubt say it's an illegitimate question, but at the earliest part...
What page are you talking to, Jeffrey?
Sorry?
What
Well,
page
I think I'm talking to page 18.
18.
It's a general query in relation to this. At the start of this epidemic, when we all shut down, in the very early stages, we lost a senior financial officer who had just been appointed. With the loss of that officer, had any effect, or how have we countered that effect in undergoing the audit and making sure things were safe? At some time, would somebody be able to tell me how we've coped? Because it was a blow, I think, back in March, wasn't it? At the time as this was happening.
I can start the answer on that. Again, Steve may want to come in as well, but actually, although it was the timing was a bit problematic. There again, I think any time that you lose a sort of a senior officer isn't necessarily a good time. However, I would say that Steve just assumed his role, so I had as much access as I needed to to Steve during that period before Comey arrived. So it actually didn't have an impact on finalising the work that was ongoing at the time, because Steve just stepped into the breach.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, do you want to comment on that? Jeffrey, all right with that? Councillor Clifford?
It's just that somebody's name was mentioned. I missed the name. Have we got somebody that was Steve jumped into the gap?
Yes.
We're all very grateful for him assuming that post. God knows what would have happened if he wouldn't have been capable, able, and willing to do that. But did I hear somebody else's name mentioned, that we've got somebody?
Can I come in there? So basically, I stepped in. Chris Raymakers brilliantly extended his resignation period by a few months, which allowed us to do close down, etc. And now we've got somebody in who's covering Chris's post, Comey. So if you were at PFD or service delivery, you know that Comey was, I think more luck than judgment, managed to book off his leave before he started here, finding they had 2 committees to come to. No, so Comey's covering Chris Raymaker's old role. Jeffrey.
Okay. All right, Jeffrey.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Page 19. We'll continue with. Page 20. Again, the blue hand up. This is Councillor David Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just to go through, obviously, the description of audit, we've got a list down there. The 2 that we have not got an assurance level on, a capital programme and housing audit due to COVID. But then we've got another one that doesn't fit the key at the bottom under the advisory. Can we just have a bit of an explanation as to why that doesn't fit into any of the assurance levels?
Yeah, occasionally we'll do a piece of work where we're asked to give specific advice on a subject area rather than a standard audit where we are identifying controls and then testing the effectiveness of those controls. So the audit, fraud and corruption piece of work was advisory in nature and didn't carry an assurance level with it. I'd have to check if you need to know more information on what the advice that was given. That was before I took over as the head of audit, so I'd have to come back to you on that. But I do know that it wasn't a compliance audit, and therefore we didn't give it an assurance level. So the reason I've included it on that list is so that you've got a complete picture of audit activity, almost all of which has to contribute towards the opinion. But as I say, we do have some flexibility just to provide advice sometimes on areas.
Okay. You mentioned that you might need to do a little bit more work and produce something to answer the question in full. Is that something that you can do? And Councillor David Lulling will accept that?
Yes, thank you. It was more towards the key as to why it was just a piece of advice as opposed to an audit. But yeah, no, thank you very much.
Right.
Is that all right?
As well, just to explain that from time to time, I will ask auditors to come and do a piece of work where maybe I've got a concern or we haven't got the expertise in the council, just to give us some advice independently about how we can improve things and where things can be, how we can implement stuff. So if you think about the COVID-19 grants in particular, whilst the first three set of grants, there was no requirement for any audit or assurance to be given. But given the size of the grants and the risk to the council, I asked for some assurance work to be done to say we're actually following the right lines. And that's great because in the third set of grants, government have asked for audit to do assurance work. So it saved a bit of time there, but we know we were going along the right lines in the first place and we weren't going to uncover an absolute mess. So that's where audit are. They're no longer the telling you done things wrong and you're rubbish and fix it. They're coming around to help us and identifying how we can do things better and actually showing us where we're doing things well that we might not realise. So thanks, Chair. Sorry for that at all.
Thank you. David, you okay with that?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Steve.
Okay, we'll go back onto the page numbers, page 21. Any comments on page 21? No hands raised at all. Okay. Page 22, which is just the risk ranking system. Okay. There being no other questions with regards to that paper, it's again to be noted and to be affirmed. I assume that everybody's happy with that and we can move on to agenda item 8. Okay. Agenda item 8 again. Is that Stephen or is that Mark?
That's me. I'm just trying to actually pull it up on my screen.
You want to go through the page numbers and then people ask questions, or you talk about that as we go along?
Yeah, I'd quite like to just talk it through and then go through the page numbers.
Okay.
With yourself again. Well, actually, no. Let's try it the other way. Let's go through page by page, and I'll talk you through it. That might save a bit of time, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. The recommendation is to again to report the report to be noted. So we'll go through the pages. Start at 25, go on to page 26. That's just the introduction.
Yeah.
And the risk management system is not applicable. So page 27. And that's an interesting one when we talk about the limited.
Yep.
Any questions on that? I think that it's explanation of the limited. I think that there's more information further down on the contract because the contract register, isn't there? Which is being dealt with, I understand.
Yes. Do you want me to talk a little bit about that?
You can do.
Now,
yes.
Yeah. So
for matter of record, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I mentioned earlier that we try to scope our plan in accordance with sort of identified risk areas, and this is an area that the council had already identified that they needed some help on. Looking at the contract register, I think there was a general view that it was known that it wasn't really fit for purpose, and that's why Steve asked us to look at this rather than just sort of ignoring it. So it's not surprising that at this point, when we did this piece of work, we came up with a limited assurance opinion, because I think Steve wanted someone to lift the cover and look at what was underneath, really, and then come up with an action plan to improve. So we dealt mainly with Dave Gill on this piece of work. We sort of identified areas which I think were, let's be honest, were already known about. So it was known that the contract register was not up to date. It was known that it wasn't available on the website, and it wasn't really acting as the tool that management needed it to be in order to manage contracts, identify when contracts were coming up for renewal well in advance, and start the procurement process on those. So since we've done this piece of work, quite a lot's happened. So the contract register has been updated. It is now available on the council's website. And the very fact that it has been updated means that it can now start to be used as a management tool. I think I'm right in saying that, Sam, you may have had quite a lot to do with this. Is that right? Or
yeah, there's been a joint bit of work on the direction of Dave Gill between myself and Kristen Perkins, who's the data protection and compliance officer.
I think the key thing to note is that when we come down to the bit on recommendation tracking, that there are no recommendations that were due for implementation by the end of August in relation to contract register that have not already been implemented. And in fact, the recommendation tracker results in themselves, I think, are very encouraging because there are no level 2 recommendations that were due up to the 31st of August that remain outstanding. There are only 11 in total, 7 of which are mediums and 4 of which are low. I think 11 is a very, very good result, actually, particularly given the challenges in the last few months. So I think most, if not all of those 11 are likely to be still live because they are officers have been dealing with COVID stuff. I'm pretty convinced of that. So yeah, again, that's a good result.
Okay.
In terms of the other 2 pieces of work that's been completed, if we just go back up to page one further up, I think, risk management, if we talk a little bit about that. So this is an example of what Steve was just talking about, where we actually sort of work in partnership with management. So we've actually done quite a lot of work to facilitate the production of a formal opportunity risk management policy. That's actually in draft now, and I think it's been discussed. Has it been discussed this week at the SLT, Steve, or is it next week? I've spoke to.
It is coming on the 28th, I think. We put it back a week purely because of the COVID situation that arose over the past few days. But it's one of those ones where risk management, before audit started, we said, right, we're going to progress risk management because we are a relatively immature organisation when it comes to risk management. We're very old-fashioned and not developed. Unfortunately, no work happened over a period of 6 to 8 months. So that's where I asked CW Audit if they could work with us to develop a best practice risk management methodology, but not only to do that, but to help staff understand how it works and how to embed it in the organisation. So rather than just going, this is a wonderful policy, slap it down, and the staff don't know what they're doing with it, it's part of that ongoing development of risk, which is key. I know, Kevin, you love risk. I love risk. And, you know, sometimes it can be like pulling teeth to get people to understand that risk management isn't dry and something doesn't affect them. It's an everyday occurrence. And risk also is about opportunity as well as the bad things in life. So we've got this policy and we're discussing it at SLT on the 28th. It's really good, to be fair. It's something that'll put a smile on your face, Kevin, when you see it.
All right, thank you.
Although it might send some others to sleep, I enjoy it. It's great. And again, thanks to CW to be able to not only work around this as a new piece of work and partnership, but also to be able to work with us during, there are crazy times for local authorities, and to keep it fresh in our minds as well without it being open. So it's a really good bit, and I can't wait for it to be up and running.
Okay. All right. We've got Councillor Pretty. Josh, you wants a question. So would you like to ask that, Councillor?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the report. It's very clear and I can understand it at least, not being a financial background. My question is really about risk management. I know we're fairly new to that area in the council as such, but I'm just concerned about the agency workers that we're actually incorporating. It says Q2 in progress. So if you could just explain what that actually means and why do we have agency workers? So, because even in I think in the audit in the accounts there were quite a lot of agency workers there. I get that it could be due to people not being able to work from home or etc. due to what COVID is doing, but is that incorporated into our register, the risk register?
Sorry, so yes, staffing is a major strategic risk, and that's how it's managed on a regular basis. So that's always one of the risks that's been there time immemorial and will never go from any organisation's risk register. So they're always in there, and it's always managed in an appropriate way. So it's one of the ones that will carry on and has carried on into the new corporate risks.
I think that's the reason why we're looking at it as an audit subject this year, and that work is ongoing at the moment. I'd just reiterate what Steve had said. Actually, we do work for lots of different councils, and agency staff is a sad fact of life, I'm afraid, the need to use them. So it is an area where we need to ensure that we've got appropriate controls around appointment and then ongoing management of agency workers. So that's why we're doing that piece of work. It's ongoing at the moment, so I can't really hazard a guess as to what's coming out of that. I think it's probably best to leave that till it's finished. I would assume that will be finalised by the time of the next audit committee.
Yeah. All right. Is that okay, Christy?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Where do we get to? Page 29. Any questions on that? Page 30. That's just
yeah, if I could just make a comment or two on this, Chair, if that's okay.
page 30. Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Okay.
Just to sort of highlight the fact that this year's internal audit plan has been like no other internal audit plan I've ever delivered. We've had to be very flexible as we, in liaising with Steve, have adjusted our approach according to what's coming out from the centre, and particularly, as Steve has already mentioned, actually around the grants that have been paid out. So sort of midway down that, you'll notice that we've got 3 audits that when I did the first iteration of this audit plan back in January, February, weren't there, but they are now. So we have had to be flexible, but I'm guessing that's what you'd expect as an audit committee under the sort of strange times that we're living.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on any of that at all? I can't see any hands up at all. It is a note report. I assume that we affirm that they will note the report as a committee, and then we'll move on to agenda item 9. Thank you. Agenda item 9.
Thank you, Chair. If I can take you through this. This is.
Just before you start, Steve. Sorry, I meant to just say that this is for approval. It says statement for the year ending 31st March 20 be approved. So at the end of this, we show of hands, and I'm sure Daniel will sort that out when we get there. Sorry to interrupt. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. I think you'll have all seen this, not at an audit committee, but either at PFD or full council in previous years. This is the standard governance statement, which is a review of all the governance practices that we keep within the council, and it follows the sit for best practice way of reporting it. It has been through internal audit. They've had a review of it, and their annual report helps feed into this. But also the external auditors have reviewed this, and they're in agreement that it reflects the position the council's in. With respect to, particularly, it is item 6 on the governance, significant governance issues. As we've highlighted, we have not identified any significant governance issues. I think that's the 3rd year on the trot. But what we have identified is our risks that could become significant governance issues, and we've already talked about those. That would be in the risk management. So when we wrote this policy, risk management was still in its infancy, and now it's much better implemented and going forward, and the housing issues that we've identified through the audits that need to be improved and work's going on there. So they're where we are with that. It's a very dry document. It always is, always has been, always will be, unless something disastrous happens with the council, then it becomes a very interesting read.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm happy to take any questions on it, but just again, strange times. Normally this would have gone with the accounts and this would have been signed off in July as part of the accounts bundle, but beginning the accounts won't be signed off until November due to the change in regulations and surprisingly COVID. We're signing this off early just to get it through, so we've got that bit of assurance that it's there, no surprises at the end.
Okay, so if we can go through the pages again as we've done before, so members can have an opportunity to scrutinise if they want to. If we go to page 33, any questions on page 33? No hands up, so we're on to page 34. Any questions on that? Page 34. Again, I look at the item 4, which is the governance framework, where I don't know whether members agree, where we operate, we still retain the committee system, which I think that for me, from a democratic point of view, it involves all members as it suggests there. Other authorities have obviously gone to a cabinet system, which to me disenfranchises most of the members, and they can't participate in a lot of or decision making. I just think about it as the county council have a cabinet system. For my last research for the cabinet system, there were 12 members in receipt of up to over £200,000 in payments, which is quite expensive. And recently, and please correct me if I'm wrong, last time I was up there, they actually proposed, I think refer to them as bag people. So they've got an assistant. And again, if you look at the cost of them, it's quite significant. So and I've spoken to some members at the county saying that they feel that they're not empowered or don't make decisions already made for them, whereas our system, committee system, makes sure that everybody has a say. I think that's quite clear in this document here, and I think that long may that be the case. That's just a statement. So I just like to get that in. So I think it's important that from a public perception, decisions are scrutinised by members, and each and every member has a say, which is how it should be. Page 30. Any more comments on page 34?
Well, Chair.
I've
got my hand. I managed to make it go up my hand.
Yes, I've got it.
Your last comments as a serving member of the county council, I can assure you that it's not only members of the opposition on Leicestershire County Council that feel left out, it's a lot of members of the governing party.
Yes, I know.
They go through the routine of scrutiny, but nobody takes it. Very little notice is taken. And I would support the continuing of our system. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to support you on that one.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, it is those people I've spoken to that you're referring to of the ruling party. They're saying that. Okay, thank you for that. Any other question on 34? Go over to page 35. Any questions on that? I can't see anybody's hands up. Oh, Councillor David Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a note, really, on corporate objective 1. I mean, they're a set of really good corporate objectives. I think coming into the way in which we work nowadays, though, maybe a bit of wording around what we're trying to achieve is second paragraph, and it's the sentence reads, but to address the health needs across the borough. We will work with the health partners, including fire service, health equality, meaning nobody's left, nobody should feel excluded or reducing loneliness created in a modern world. I think we should be aspiring to the health and well-being needs across the borough. So it's just a wording a wording thing, is that well-being reduces that level of loneliness created by such times as COVID as well.
Okay.
So sorry, it's just a wording.
Yeah, thank you.
Is
that some? Go on,
Councillor
Karen.
Wood, to let you know, this is taken straight from the corporate plan. So the time we'll be able to change that next year when we refresh the corporate plan. So if we can put that as a note, Sam, to implement, look at that aspect of it for the corporate plan. What I should have said is a lot of this document is taken, it's a compilation of other documents. So I said that at the start, but it's a great point, David. And to be honest, I think the corporate plan is going to shift slightly in the COVID world, particularly if we're still in these restrictions in 6 months' time.
Yeah,
thank you.
Point. Yeah, so that would be useful to make an amendment to the corporate plan, because that same paragraph, when I look at it, I think we probably do ourselves a little bit of an injustice, in as much that the partners, and I think that's an important word, is not just when we just include the fire service when it talks about that healthy quality, but the partners to enhance what we're trying to achieve in this borough is not just those you've mentioned, but I think perhaps an update or a note made that partners is about the probation service, which are a statutory partner in the community safety partnership. Health, they are a statutory partner. Fire and police are statutory partners, as indeed is the local council. So it's just about trying to strengthen that paragraph to say that this council is and does do some sterling work, and we need to identify that through building and protecting. Protecting is one of the things that we try and do through the CSP and others, and help empower communities. But we want, for me, it's about strengthening that paragraph to say this is what we do, and the work that we do impacts on the well-being of this borough. Let's just perhaps note that and perhaps consider that in the review of the corporate document. Thank you. You're all right with that, David, with us as well, with your comments?
Yes, thank you.
With what Steve said, you're all right with that, are you?
Yes, yeah, perfect, thank you.
And Samuel, we made a note of probably what I've said. Is that something that, and Steve, are you okay with that?
That's great. All okay. Good to feed into the refresh.
Okay, thank you. 35 we've just done. 36. No comments on 36, please show. Any comments on 36? I made some notes here at the third paragraph from the top. When we look at to maximise our value and assets, which is a nice statement, but all through the document, I always keep thinking to myself, if you've got control, penultimate control to be able to make those decisions, the external factors which actually what I'm trying to say is that they determine the future of where we're going from this council. It's already alluded to in here, which I'll point out later on. But if you're in control of your budget and you want to provide a decent service, you need to be able to be in control of that budget so that you can do that. But if you've got external sources that are saying we're going to cut it by 30%, what are you doing? You're actually having to say we're trying to provide the service with less and less finances available to do it. And all I'm looking at that is we can generate whatever we're trying to generate so we don't increase council taxes. It's better than increasing council taxes on our communities, which is right. You don't want to do that if necessary. But if you consistently being cut year on year, you're actually cut the services. So it's just something for me. It's if you've got control, you can do these things. If you haven't, because external sources are dictating how you do it, then it's so far as it's reasonably practical. That's all I'd like to say. But thank you for listening. Sorry, go on, Councillor Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's what the comments you were just making brought back the meetings that we attended when we were still in the office talking about investing in property. and you couldn't go wrong by getting some nice blocks of offices and perhaps a bit of upmarket retail, and how we could go to these people and make a fortune so we could pay our council tax residents a dividend instead of charging them. We must bear in mind how that's changed, and just goes to I've always been concerned about councils going down the commercial route, because in general terms I don't think they're good, but I think we must have had a lucky escape on that one. Would you not agree, Chair?
I think there's a future that we hopefully we've got, and we can look at that in some form of commercial way, and hopefully we've got the right people in the right place to be able to do that. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. 36, any more on 36? Any comments? Councillor David Lloyd again.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's just coming back on that point that the council have done, the officers and the frontline services have done an amazing job in protecting the services that we have. And I think that if we can do our due diligence and look at very effective and a stable return commercial investment for the future, will be one, supporting that frontline staff and the officers themselves, but more importantly, we'll be supporting our residents so that we can protect them from having to pay additional money in their council tax. So thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Chair, sorry.
Any other comments?
I think.
Any other comments? Go on, Steve. Yeah,
Um,
Stephen.
Yeah, it's just, although it's not related to AGS, although we talk about this, we did have a lucky escape with investing in commercial properties this year, massively. We're already looking at alternatives because we know commercial properties are not going to be great for the next couple of years unless we buy low and sell high, as it were, because the market has dropped through, and you'll read quite widely that council with large investment portfolios have seen a massive decrease in their income and they can't manage it. And equally, the government won't let them claim it back as a loss because they said it was too risky. So we've got to manage not only the financial reward, risk and reward, we've got to manage the impact of the centre on how they interpret our management of the risk and reward. So you say you invest a lot, you think you're on a good thing, it goes wrong, and then the government says, well, we thought you're too risky in the first place, you're not getting any money back. So there's more facets to a standard investment nowadays, but we're working on it, so rest assured on that front. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments? 36. We move on then to 37. I think no hands up at the moment, but I think at the last financial management, I think it's, as I alluded to earlier on, and how can you budget or plan when the statement there is quite right, when there's a complete lack of clarity from central government regarding future funding of local authorities. You need clarity. You need to be able to plan. If you've got a 3-year plan, if you're not sure what money you've got, it's guessing all the time, and that's not what it should be. Any business will tell you that. And Jeffrey's a business person; he needs clarity in what his finances are, like anybody else. And if you haven't got that, and we're working in the dark, and we don't want to promise things which we unfortunately we've got to be able to deliver. That's page 38. Any comments on 38? No hands showing. Okay. Page 39. Any hands showing? No blue hands. On page 40. Any questions on 40? The only question I've got is the third paragraph from 1, 2, 3, the fourth one, where the senior management team, a leadership team meets formally on a weekly basis. Standing items and business include finance, etc., etc. If they're formal, are they minuted, or are they public documents, or are they under private and confidential?
They are minuted and they are confident it's not a public document. And you'll be interested to know that SLT meets thrice weekly since COVID kicked in. So, a lot of the actions from there are formally recorded relating to COVID because they have to go through the National Register.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Geoffrey Coifman?
Yeah, it's a question sort of somehow relating to this, but the way forward and an improvement. I've been on the council a long time, and over the last few years, I've had great difficulty myself in deciding what are policy matters and what are operational matters. Is there a way somehow through this document or next year's document of making it clearer? Because what in the past I thought was members' involvement and was policy now turns out to be not that. It turns out to be operational. So how can we clarify that so that the members of the public and councillors know it?
If I may, through you, Chair, that isn't the point of the annual governance statement, so it would not be included in the annual governance statement. It's in our constitution. So I can only pass on my recommendation to Dave Gill that he does a member briefing or something such like that explains the difference between operation and policy. I think he did one last year, and I think a refresher might be helpful again this year.
If I might draw your attention to page 39, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down, it talks about elected members are responsible for ensuring that effective policy making, scrutiny and monitoring activities occur. Monitoring activities. For example, further down the line, we talk about housing. I've put down there, will a report go to services? Because obviously there's some weaknesses within that. And as it's the committee function, I've put down here, a report should go to services. But it's quite clear that monitoring activities occur. Whatever activities are there, then members should be aware of it and should monitor it. Does that make sense? Okay. Page 40. Page 41. Any comments on that? No hands up at all? I can see no hands up, so if go to page 42. No? Okay, page 43. Any comments, please? Then no hands up. Page 44. Again, I can't see anybody's hands up. And page 45, that just talks about the budget, council, policy, resources, service committee, etc. 46. And I can't see no hands up for page 47. Again, significant governance issues, which it talks about. Let's take that off there. The risk management and housing maintenance. Again, this is where I've put down a report to services. I think that's important because, as it suggests, monitoring is important. So therefore, I think something should go to services.
Through you, Chair, if I may come back to you through you, Chair, the duplication of reports is why you've got an audit committee, and the audit report will come outlining those issues. And then the day-to-day operational does go to service delivery committee. So we don't share audit reports in service delivery. The audit reports.
No, exactly.
So what you're talking about is actually happening, but it goes to two separate committees because that's the way the committee system works.
Yes, I'm saying that's the housing maintenance, etc.
So you get the report from housing about housing through audit,
yeah,
and
that goes.
See how that's impacted on the day to day.
Yeah. Mark, I saw you coming in there, was it? No?
No, I'm all right, thank you.
No, okay, okay, thank you. Any other questions at all? I see at the bottom it's Councillor, the leader of the council was Councillor John Boyson and Chief Executive Anne Cortical. So they will need to sign this. They'll obviously see a copy. John will see a copy of this, won't he? Of this report.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, Chair. They've already been through that and signed it. They have to sign it. Original.
Oh right, okay. So
this has already been through them. This is their report that comes to you for formal sign off.
Okay, all right. Just to clarify, then, is there any questions on that at all before we go to Samuel, who will go through the voting procedures? Any other questions at all? No. Okay, so over to you.
Okay, members, it's a decision-making report, so a recorded style vote will be taken. So I'll call out your names in alphabetical order by surname. If you could indicate if you're for, against, or abstain, and if you could unmute your microphone to do this. Councillor Joshi.
For.
Councillor Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Lloydell. Kevin Lloydell. Councillor David Lloydell.
For.
Councillor Ridley.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, we're okay. I think that's all the business to dealt with on the agenda. Therefore, I will draw the meeting to a close. But thank you everybody else for attending.